reconvene the meeting or hearing into for the reserve management plan, outline reserve management plan. The purpose of the session is to deliberate, go through the submissions or the outcome of the submissions we're doing and read, and we're waiting for to make all substantive approvals today. Away. Suggest that rather than just honing in on key issues, we do work our way through the plan. We did get a lot of from some submissions, a lot of wording changes, suggested changes. We may not spend too much time on some of those. Some of them we may just on the key points. Otherwise, we may just wait for that to wait for the redraft and then and work on it at that session. So working our way through page 1, the introduction. First comments I had there was it's really a editorial thing and consistency was raised that in terms we talk about doc administrate the land and then we talk about doc owned land. And the point was made the doc owner own the land, the public do, so we can go consistently with doc administered land. And there's a fair few points through there. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? So we're getting technical, but that just might as well work our way through it. The primary purpose on the first page under 1, there was some comment about that, and the question was raised by Tim Dennis relating it to the Reserves Act, or how he didn't believe it was totally consistent with the Reserves Act. And we put in words like restoring, enhancing the natural environment and cultural landscape, and the use of the term cultural landscape came up a couple of times as it's not defined. So we do need to get that one sorted out because it comes up quite often in the cultural landscape. You got any comment on that, Christine?
We do have cultural values in the introduction. That language came from partnering with Okaha and Tammy, and I think it's probably best for them to define exactly what they mean by cultural landscape there as opposed to cultural values. They may have been needing to say cultural values in that section, but it'd be good to clarify with them, and it's no problem to add in a definitions section to the reserve management plan. Okay,
so yeah, we didn't actually hear from them in the end, did we? They were good. I read back to their submission and they basically just said they support. So there's an option for you to check with them and then come up and get it clarified. And either we add a definition or we have to take it out of these wording here.
I think I can't speak for them, but I think it's about how those values are seen and felt in the landscape, the sort of physical way those come about.
Okay. Yeah. So can you take a note to address that? Happy with that?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have that defined.
Yeah, because it comes up in a few of the submissions, and yeah, just so we don't have any confusion there. Anything else on page 1? Anything from the staff? Oh, page on the page numbering I've got here is okay. I've got 2 numbers. Yeah, I'll go to the bottom right one. Page 3, access, physical characteristics. Yeah, the Kaitahu values is mentioned there on that page under that's the only significant values that have been identified, and they supported, that's written there, and they basically supported what was written in the plan, so we'll just keep that in mind when you talk to them, okay? But that did come up in one of the submissions. They thought there should be greater emphasis on Kaitahu involvement and decision making. Okay, anything else on that page?
I asked a question about page 3. I think in Tim Dennis's one, it did come up about the primary purpose, and there's a bit of confusion there because the Reserve Act has a definition of the primary person for recreation and scenic reserves. However, in this instance, we used those primary purposes combined with all the early engagement that we had on what we wanted to focus on. So I think just redefining primary purpose in that, in terms of that heading, primary purpose.
Sorry, which one are you reading from here? Is that,
Yeah.
oh, back there, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, three.
Page 3.
Well, I've got two
Apologies.
page threes. Okay, yeah, okay.
Just clarifying what we mean by primary purpose, you know, based on the community's input in that section, just so that there is.
What, you talk about playing around with the wording there?
Yeah, just helping define that so that there's no confusion between the Reserves Act wording and.
Well, that's what Tim Dennis was raising. He was saying that the primary purpose of recreation was quite clearly, and you know, recreation is the primary purpose. So that was the point he was trying to make. So I'm just trying to understand what you're.
Yeah, in the recreation reserve primary purpose, we've included some additional things above and beyond what the Reserves Act says. So it's about clarifying that this is the primary purpose as per this reserve management plan, rather than just a Reserves Act statement. So it's, I think, just changing the line primary purpose based on the community's input.
Yeah, that's a good point, because yeah, he was being very black and white to it, been tied with the Act, but we did get a lot of submissions, you know, wanting other things. So you have to be clear then that our primary purpose, even though it does comply with the Act, has maybe have a bit more based on community input. You happy with that? Yeah.
I think it's good to define.
That is an important. That's our starting point, basically.
And also to say why it's different from the Act.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, page number here. Yeah. Anything on the next page? Page 4. I'm not know how this page number works. Never mind. Under recreation in the introduction there. There's a sentence in there that came up, it was raised by someone. Other informal walking and biking tracks have been used on the reserve. They question the word informal. I know we're getting down into the detail, but it's a matter of question of whether we need, is that sentence needed? Back, I suppose it's true. The other is it have been used, and this is the other thing that keeps getting raised, is we're referring to in the past rather than current existing.
Yeah, and I think that might have come out of the Tim Dennis
Yeah,
as well. And our understanding from Bike Warnaker is that those trails, the biking trails, were not allowed to be used in the last few years by the private owner. So there has been a gap in being able to be used. So that's why past tense was used there, but I guess some of the informal walking tracks were still used. So we could
Yeah, well, it's just, and even the next
that.
paragraph said the reserve has also been used for climbing. Well, it's still being used for climbing. So it's, I know we're getting, but if we can have a look at that, okay, see if we can tidy up. Yeah, there was some differences in the submissions between, you know, some saying that they haven't been used for biking, others saying they have been, how long ago. So we don't want to get bogged down in that. But because Tim raised, no, I think he indicated, I think he was wrong, but he seemed to suggest that. Only since council bought the land, we kicked them off. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to, you know, to narrow that down, clarify it, because, you know, we've got a wee bit of, it's a bit vague.
Yeah,
about some of the
and
past activities.
Especially leading into, that's one of the key issues. Yeah. Yeah, and then on the next page, the top corner, mountain biking was allowed on Mount Iron in the past. There are informal trails on the north. Yeah, he seemed to think. Yeah, he got a bit more detail there. I don't think we need to change too much there. You happy with that?
Yeah.
We'll include that in your look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, getting on to the vision. The vision.
I was just going to say
sorry.
under recreation as well, Forest and Bird mentioned some other recreation types that we hadn't talking about natural hobbying or I've forgotten what the words are, but those are a couple of additional recreation types that I could add into the description. It was in the Forest and Bird.
Yeah, there's also
submission.
the submission from Amanda on meditation site and things like that.
Yeah, so just having.
Where would you put that? Is it?
Under recreation in the introduction, I would add that it's also used as a place of contemplation or meditation and the natural hobbying pursuits that are listed.
Okay, happy with that?
Yeah, just think about the meditation side of it. It conjures up different thoughts on what that looks like. And some people it's just actually sitting and reading a book. Somewhere quiet. Whether we put the word meditation or just quiet space or something like that. Or...
The word's quiet, tranquil,
Yeah.
peace. Yeah, that was like, yeah, you're right. Meditation it's pretty focused on. Sounds like you're sitting there. Oh, I'm going to be careful with that. Yeah, meditation. Righty,
Yeah, I think, and also Amanda yesterday when she was talking about your special place that she goes to, be good to be able to at least identify those that there's some, or even if it's just for us, where those quiet places are before we start doing anything.
yeah, that was a bit interesting because one minute she wrote about defining it, and then she didn't want anyone there because it disintegrated them. So it's a bit. I think we don't want to get too specific in this. It's an operational thing, but at least we include it in the as an option.
Useful to know, I guess.
The point if we further down go through the trail network policy, it's something that in developing that you would consider all those uses that we've listed within recreation to check that there's no conflicts with any of those uses. So having that listed in recreation lets us acknowledge we need to do that.
Yes, add to the list because I brought that later on there. One of the key things was raised by submissions on the consultation of all the users before as we do things, so there's no conflict. Yeah, okay, right. Anything else on it? The vision. Well, they come up as the key. The word natural. Some of us would recommend it should be outdoor recreation. Natural. The word natural not defined. What else? Be a dictionary definition of it.
I think in the vision, outdoor recreation usually does mean in a natural area, but because the word natural came through so strongly in the community input, we wanted to capture that in the vision. I think we could, for example, change it to providing outdoor recreation in nature and sort of modify the next sentence, but I think keeping the word natural.
One of the things with Mount Reserve is a revered a natural landmark providing outdoor recreation. I don't know, it's sort of playing around with the words. But then there's another Anne Stevens from Fish and Bird and another version there she proposed. Yeah, it goes on quite a bit. You've got to be careful don't get too much detail, I think, in a vision, but
it's meant to be quite a compact, overarching statement.
Exactly. The other one was down the bottom of it. All right, the last two sentences, bringing the community together to protect its cultural, ecological, geological, and recreational values. One of the submitters wants to put, because this is a recreational reserve, put recreation first. So it's recreation, right? Recreational, cultural, ecological, geological values.
I guess if the dot plan does transfer successfully to QLDC, it will be a recreation and a scenic reserve combined into one, and this vision is applying to both. I went with alphabetical in this instance, but
What do you think?
I'm not that concerned about it, but
Well, it's coming from the idea that it's been
I
put
understand.
forward as it's a recreational reserve at the moment. Oh, part of it will stay as a recreational, but that's why you just want to emphasise that we don't lose sight of that.
we could add, protect its recreation, scenic, cultural, ecologic. We could acknowledge both those primary purposes.
Yeah, I think do that.
You're sort of respecting the ecological and geological side of things, but you're also honouring the cultural side aspects of it as well. So it's sort of quite
Well, I think it was we're only talking a couple of words or moving a couple of words, and I think if you put the scenic in there, that covers off on it. Yeah. Okay, happy with it?
I'm listening.
Right.
Ask me a question, Mr. Chick.
I say the geological is the most important, being a geologist.
Well, not, that's you didn't declare the conflict.
Rock, between me and a rock.
Rock and a hard place.
Okay. So we'll see how that comes out. Okay. Right now, objectives. Let's go through them. Before we start looking at this request we'll come back to it, but to reorder them. There's two different versions of reordering, one from Tim Dennis and one from Anne. Anyway, objectives 5.1. Once again, we're getting down into some of the technical wording, but someone wanted to add to preserve and prioritise the natural, open and informal recreation and scenic experience of the reserve. They wanted to add including natural quiet and tranquility. But that was leading on to the submission that was arguing against some of the activities because they might be a little bit more noisy than things. So we've got to be how we balance out for the complete use of the reserve. What are your thoughts?
Quite nice to put something about the tranquil places, but
well, we've got to watch out the impact of some of these changes or proposals. Have you got any comment? Anyone else? Stephen? So it says to preserve and prioritise the natural, open and informal recreation and scenic experience.
probably not the right place to start in quiet spaces. Right in that one.
Yeah, I think I would leave that one objective alone and leave it to itself. It's quite important and covers a lot of different stuff within that one objective.
Okay.
Potentially you could create another objective that
Well, 5.3 talks about
acknowledges experiences.
this 5.3 mentions the community, and that's probably the area where those contemplative spaces, shall we say, came up the most, is from individuals saying, like many of them saying, I like to go there to do nothing, sort of thing.
Yeah, okay, we'll leave that one. We always see if there's any better place for it.
5.6 to retain reserve as an undeveloped slice of the outdoors within a busy town, providing respite from the surrounding urban area. Respite could mean all those things. It could mean activity, high intensity activity, as well as really low intensity or contemplative. Yeah, well, some other people argue that 5.6 and 5.1 are basically, they almost, they follow on from each other. Someone's saying 5.6 is already covered 5.1, but we haven't keep it there. The only thing other than on the 5.6 was the word undeveloped. Some people question, well, that I just don't have any real issue with it. It's just not defined what undeveloped. But if you're looking at building bike tracks and that, is that still undeveloped? Well, let's guess the term. That's a good question. We could define that. Is there anything in the district plan? Sorry, call on you, Don. You don't need to if you.
Not so much around what like developed or undeveloped is.
Yeah. So if you say retain the reserves and undeveloped, and then we later on we have an objective, to create more walking trails and tracks and bike tracks and anything. Is that development? Yeah, I think that was a word that came through in our early engagement. Liking it. Well, a lot of people say undeveloped, but sometimes they think, you're going to put restaurants and stuff up there and gondolas and things like that. So yeah, we could just remove that word. Objective. Well, I think we still stand up
like
Well-
reserve as a slice of the outdoors within a busy town.
Yeah, I think, have a look at that. I think I'm leaning towards taking it out.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
big slice of that.
Big slice.
now the 5.2 and 5.3 fish, forest and bird, well, 5.2 you reckon that, you should really honing in on geomorphology and stuff. Sink Mount Iron geology, recognising as an outstanding natural feature, which makes it a key landmark of the gateway to Wanaka. One of that was she wanted to split it out, have two.
Geological and ecological.
No, she wanted
Geomorphology.
take out geology in the first one, put geomorphology. So yeah, I'm not a geologist or.
I don't even know what geomorphology means.
But we've got to be, with what we've got there, geology is pretty well known, it picks up most things. What are you saying, Barry? Put in there ecology too.
Well, that was something, obviously Anne makes point that there are at-risk species, plants and insects, so.
So geomorphology is a study of landforms and landform evolution. So
Well, I was just hoping because you've got those extra studies and extra reports and include them as appendixes and that that's something we can look at separately. But there's a lot of detail she provided there. The
Quite happy to take advice on that. If that enhances the acknowledgement of it as quite a special geological place, that would be.
well, geological and ecological, there's sort of terms that have been used a lot by submitters and that. So
Yeah.
just look at whether we add in the ecology, whether it will impact. 5.3 was pretty well liked by everyone. That was 5.3 was liked. 5.4. Yeah, we might have to come back to that one because we're going to be discussing commercial later on in a bit more detail. One of the things was raised by Dan again was that some of these objectives we add on the thing that are not inconsistent with the overarching objectives and other objectives. I'm not sure. I was trying to ask you whether we need to put that on every. She's recommended they should be added as a rider on quite a few of our things, but I thought, yeah, I might come back to that, but we'll just leave it at the moment.
The RMP is meant to be read as a whole, so
That's
when
right.
Considering the objectives, it is based on those primary
Yeah,
purposes
so-
and the vision.
So you wouldn't do part of it. You've got to take into account the whole thing anyway. So I just don't know why would have to keep writing that. Yeah. Okay. Protect enhance the reserve's unique, special and significant ecological values. There was some comment there to expand that out, but I think that's pretty. Should they wanted to say more about the SNAs? I think that's.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 5.5. Yeah. So that one's around the ecological values. So
Yeah,
that's in there.
yeah. Well, that's one that we're talking about with 5.2.
Yeah. So we'll keep ecology and the geo side separated.
Okay,
Each
yeah.
have their own objective to.
Happy with that?
Yep.
We talked about 5.6 to retain 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10. Some said that they could maybe combine some of those, but they are all pretty acceptable. Happy with that? No other comment on those ones? Just to recognise the story of Mount Iron. The safe and resilient reserve, the safety thing came up a lot. So we've got the objective there, overarching objective, so when we get into policies, we've got that covered off. It was raised by quite a bit of few of the submitters.
Yeah, is that more of an operational type thing? Because obviously, how far do you go?
Well, the objective is to provide, and that'll flow down into policy, then the operational side, I guess. So at least we've got the umbrella. Some people that we should have made it stronger, and that's there was no objective for risk and safety mitigation. Remember that was someone was talking about that.
I think there probably is value in acknowledging it as an overall objective, about being safe and resilient. We do have our specific policies, but everything else, commercial activities, or when we get to that, should act and behave in a safe and resilient way.
Yeah.
So having that overarching.
I agree we should have it.
objective
It's just a matter of whether that's enough. I think we definitely need it, but and I think it's
do you think
okay.
it should be
Well, I don't know
incorporated
whether
into
what your thoughts are, because there was some submissions on that. I don't know whether it's more into the policy side of things. When we look at the fire mitigation, there's a few policy on that, and
The thing that I'm trying to get clear in my mind is a lot of these activities have an inherent risk factor with them, regardless. It doesn't matter whether you're mountain biking or rock climbing or running over rocky ground. And you know, if we're talking about providing a safe environment, it's inherently risky by nature. And,
well, you covered that. You mentioned that yesterday. We talked about WorkSafe. Who is, you know, whether our responsibility in, you know, but the thing is, that's to prevent us putting in something that is inherently unsafe. I guess I don't know what. You know, what would that be? I don't know. It's a good point.
So potentially it feels like this is obliging us beyond our capabilities to that. Yeah.
Yes, that's, I guess, my thoughts, that if we're providing a safe environment for risky leisure activities, it's sort of a bit of a contradiction.
Maybe there's another word for safe.
Or
Maybe
are we
legal.
providing it, or are we just trying to make sure it happens? So we're to ensure a safe and resilient reserve, rather than
enable or yes.
Yeah, well, so it's the provide word. The word provide, I guess, is the we need to maybe look at a different word there.
I mean, obviously, we want to try and make everything that happens there as safe as
Yeah.
possible within the confines.
So
of
it's a matter
whatever
of
the
aiming
activity
for making sure everything that's designed and that we go for. Yeah.
So maybe it's the word provide that's making it a little bit onerous. Maybe it should be facilitate or enable or something like that. That sort of this kind of.
Yeah. We'll come back a little.
Yeah.
We'll take a note of
I
that.
quite like facilitate. I think that's means we can pass on what we.
Yeah, well, we need to look out, be careful, look up meanings of these words.
I think a legal review as well. Legal has already reviewed the hazards section of the document,
But it did come up because we talked about it with the paragliding. He kept saying, well, paragliding is safer than mountain biking and things like that. So it's, yeah, and it's something, because the other guy who lived on the Access 9 was alluding to it, not with the activities on the reserve, but actually getting to the reserve, you know, the liability of people getting injured and stuff like that. So yeah, we need to maybe look around. I don't know if I like facility. Anyway, so we'll come back to that. I'll put a note there. Provide.
Negotiate.
We can put it out to the audience. See what they.
Enable.
Enable. Yeah, well, look at that's a lady. Okay. The next one, to enable active and passive recreation use, access and enjoyment of the reserve. So enable safe, active and passive. Yeah, okay, we'll get that one's got ticks anyway. Oh, 511, that did come up because a lot of people said wanted to get rid of 512, said it's covered in 511. Because then we talk about mountain bike trail network, and then we get the climbers wanting an objective and therefore to enable climbing on existing and potentially new craigs within the reserve. So we get two specific activities, and it's a matter of whether the objectives whether to enable active and passive recreation use, access and enjoyment of the reserve in 511, is that enough of an objective to cover all activities?
Well, and that was the point that Guy Stephen made, was that 512 in effect is almost prioritising one activity.
Yeah, that came up pretty strongly in a lot of this, but then it came up all the submissions supporting mountain biking supported that objective, obviously, because that enabled what they're submitting on.
I think the issue is that if we just leave mountain biking in there, that it becomes a focus rather than, and if we try to list everything, we're bound to miss something. So I think that.
Well, if we leave that there, we, like I say, we've got a submission from the climbing, so what do we do about that one?
I think 511 sort of encompasses things and more.
And it talks about later on what we would.
We've got it in the policy.
Can and can't do.
We've got it in the policies, we can play around with them because we need to strengthen up some of those maybe. Any comment, Christine?
I think that here in the objectives, the mountain biking is one thing that's a bit of a step change from the current situation. So that maybe it got pulled into the objectives for that reason, but I think that it should be considered in, you know, equal distribution with the other recreation types. And I think we also, this is a very long-term document. We don't know what other recreation uses might come up in the future. Might be downhill, something else, or so just leaving it as active and passive recreation helps us capture potential future uses. Or
Might be downhill skiing in 50 years' time.
Yeah, okay. So are we okay? With that? Are we happy then that 511 is where it's worded is adequate?
Yep.
Okay. 513, protect the reserve from cumulative adverse effects of the use and development. There's someone argue this is an RMA issue or something.
yeah, I think the word cumulative effects is used often in RMA language, but I think it is appropriate here in the Reserves Act context as well. It's something that we should be considering. We don't want death by 1,000 cuts with whatever we're doing, so cumulative effects is important.
Right.
But I understand that that could be a bit confusing if you used to the RMA process as well, but I think it's very relevant.
I heard last night that apparently we're going to seal all the pathways.
Okay, it's is there any mood to want to change the order of these objectives to give some sort of see, someone wants to put 511 as number 1, whereas fish and forest and bird want to put ecology at number 1. So I don't know what this is. Just a random. This is not any hierarchical order.
It is so far in quite a.
I don't think it matters what order it is. The objectives are the focus of the whole plan, shall we say, in a way. So
Potentially structuring it in a way that moves from the bigger overarching objectives to the more specific ones, such as recognising heritage values might be.
Yeah, well, I just wanted, can you have a look at that? Let's see what you think. I'm not getting too hung up about it, but I like the idea of, sort of the more encompassing ones leading down, because because when the ones that are referred to the most, maybe 511, maybe 5.1. If you make it 5.14, then that's you look at it and think, oh, well, that's way down the list. But it's a subconscious thing, I guess. But I think it maybe give it more credibility if we do have it in a more structured order. Yeah. Okay.
I just wondered whether 5, 7, 8, 9 that could be encompassed as just in a single phrase to honour the cultural, historical, and environmental attributes of Mount Olive.
Yeah, well, someone submitted on that. Someone said, why we put those, group those together. I don't know whether you got to be careful you change the wording too much. That's been we submitted on. We put this out for consultation.
Potentially, so far it was just maybe to make it easier to read, just keeping it one thought, one item per objective. It's a bit easier to read. Heritage and cultural values can be separate.
Yeah, I know. I'm not too fussed about it.
I think it's fine as it is.
Okay.
Just short and
Sorry,
sharp
Barry, we'll
punctuations
move
of
on.
certain. How many pages? is it?
We're getting there. We're on to page. Okay, let's go to policies. Number 6. 6.1, commercial activities. Now, we had quite a few, we had submissions on this. I don't recall any strong submissions saying wanting commercial activities on the reserve, but we did have submissions saying they didn't want commercial activities on the reserve. And then also we had submissions that were quite strong about having too much activity on the reserve and overburdening the trails and the tracks, taking away the enjoyment of the visitors there that are just enjoying the reserve as per the objectives. So the question is, do we keep commercial activities in or take it out? What are the implications? My question would be, if we have an event, which we come to shortly, we have a lot of events on reserves, sports and things like that. If we wanted to have an event there and wanted a coffee cart, would we be able to if we didn't have commercial activities? Things like that. I'm just looking at the implications. If you had a coffee cart in the car park at the bottom of the reserve, that's in the reserve, because we got told yesterday if there's a bike shop here taking a van load of bikes out with people to the car park, then they have to have a permit to do that because it's a commercial activity. So if we're having some event there, a non-profit event, could we have and we didn't have a commercial clause, could we have a coffee cart there? I'm getting down into
Yeah, that, like, if no commercial activity, then
So you wouldn't
not
be allowed?
for profit.
okay.
If, somebody's handing away free coffees, maybe. Yeah, even then.
Otherwise, they have to go outside the reserve, somewhere outside the reserve, and then they have to get.
I think when we discussed it, it was those sorts of things that we may not think of at the moment, and that are pseudo commercial or something like that, but within a charitable thing. Challenge Wanaka decides to put their finishing line up there or something like that, and
but that's not really a commercial activity.
No, but I'm saying then the ancillary things that they put around it might be.
Okay. But then again, we've got other areas where they can have those things. It's a matter of taking into account, the broad spectrum of submissions where we want more activity in the biking area, we want more walking tracks. Do we need to have commercial tours and that on that reserve, and then the staff then are lumbered with the thing of issuing permits and having to deal with any sort of perceived conflict in the future. Now, so I'm actually personally leaning towards no commercial activity on the reserve. We've got options for other areas for reserve. The Queenstown Gardens don't permit commercial activities, and it seems to work all right. You got any comment on that, Kristen?
No, just that yes, it does simplify things if there's no commercial activities, but and that was something that came through strongly in the engagement when that reserve management plan was done, and that
I do, but on the other hand, simplifying something is not the key reason. I think we need to. Sorry, I put you on the spot, but we need to.
I'm not comfortable with commercial activities. We've got heaps of other opportunities for that sort of thing, and if you start, where do you stop? It's
We almost need to start a list of what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah, but that's pretty dynamic. It's constantly changing. Yeah, I think it'd be really nice not to.
We've got to base it on. We've got to be based taking into account the submission. We can have our own personal views, but we're based on the submissions, and we did get submissions saying they were against it. We didn't get a lot for it, and if you look at the implications of the impact of other users in that came through in submissions, I think we have grounds for taking it out.
I agree. What do you say, Chris?
I mean, I'm just going back to why we put it in there in the first place, was just in case there's something that we couldn't or didn't think of right now that we would go, oh, we really want that to happen. Now it can't.
So does a reserve management plan ever get reviewed?
I asked that question ages ago. Someone said something maybe in 10 years. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what we've got written on the second page. Generally, reserve management plans should be reviewed at a minimum of 10-year intervals by parks officers. This does not necessarily require a rewrite, and that's taken from the Reserves Act.
So, yeah,
So they can be amended based on changing circumstances or changing pressures. And so amendments to policies do go through
Yeah.
from time to time.
Something like this would have to must be again. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, just looking at, I keep going back to the submissions and not, maybe that some weren't actually talking specifically about commercial, but they were talking about, not having more activity, even the people that were against the biking, saying that, so if you, and on that, we're going to discuss that in a minute, at the moment we're leaning toward, we've got submissions supporting biking there, so allowing that, enabling some of these other things we're going to decide on shortly, if we keep commercial and that just complicates or puts more pressure on some of the other things we might want to decide on. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, we're basically generally agreeing we take out commercial.
certainly, things like, 6.1.4, consider reserved for
Yeah.
weddings and other private functions. I think that's like,
Well, we've got lots of places for wedding,
Oh, 100%.
And this is a unique opportunity with this reserve so close to town, keeping it or based on our, what was it, previous objective? Yeah.
maybe we need to put.
Okay.
We do have one more thing as well around consider allowing overflow parking on the reserve. So that would mean that we don't consider overflow parking on the reserve for anything related to a commercial event.
Oh, the parking
Well,
outside of
include the
it.
AMP show. Is that deemed as a?
Well, it's not, I don't believe that's a commercial event. But there are commercial activities at the show, but not, they're getting to it.
Should be charging those people that park there though. It's
I
great.
think it went really well last year. A lot of people actually walked.
I know, I heard, yeah. No, I think.
Or we
it's
might, just,
great stuff.
we're going to come to parking later on, so we might have to just keep that in mind, how we cover that. But at this stage, it does impact on, as we go through it, because we do refer to commercial out. So at this stage, we're agreeing to take commercial out, right? Community, 6.2, community partnering, gardenership and volunteering. Now, we had a really good submission on that yesterday. Very impressive young man. I was going to say we're going to enjoy that barbecue on Friday afternoon. Carcanet. Yeah, I had all had ticks beside this. I don't know if anybody got any. Did you pick up any submissions?
No, Te Kakano is one of the well-known and revered, shall we say, community groups that works really, really well, and anything along that line needs to be encouraged.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering at the last one, the second last, 624. Right, education, that's right. I didn't notice the education. Education on the riverway does not adversely affect public use. I'm just trying to think, where do we need to put anything that came out quite a bit, was about this whole consultation of people using, using the river. So if we want to start putting in some more walking trails, climbers would like us to talk to them, see, just have them consult. So you consult all the known or the active users of the thing. So I'm just trying to think where we put. Have we got an objective that covers that sort of thing, or should we put that in somewhere like here? Community partnering. That's more of the users of the
Stakeholder
Stake,
engagement.
yeah. I'm not sure which we've got policies later on that cover that.
No, we don't. And this would probably be a logical place to put
A
it.
clause that refers to involving the stakeholders in whatever we do next.
Yeah, either in the the development infrastructure type section or in.
Yeah, I wondered if it goes in that area, because we're talking about doing development. Well, careful, use that word. And doing enhancement or add additional work there. So anything we do, we've got to make sure through with their management group or whatever, governance group, we do the consultation with all the users. So they can't turn around and say, oh, bloody hell, you didn't consult with us. So I just wonder, we'll come back to it. Can we make a note of that and maybe look at it under the development and infrastructure area? Right, so that one seems to be okay. 6.3, community events. Yeah, once again, there's under policies, I had comment mainly from Anne Stephen about adding the clause, not compromise overarching objectives. But like I say, it's a holistic plan. Anything we do, we've got to tie it back to objectives.
Oh, there's the parking bit there as well. But the parking that we referred to just before was actually back in 6.3.6.
And specifically in this instance for community events, rather than commercial events. So yeah,
That's covered there.
The parking's a community thing in that it saved 600 cars going into town for the last RMP show, which is quite significant. So that's a community thing.
Yeah, we're okay with that. We're on that. You're right with this one?
Yep.
The only one I had was 6.3.4. Once again, I think Tim wanted to put recreational first. Reserve for community, cultural, sporting and recreational activities. It's just to recognise it's a recreational reserve, but I'm not too fussed. Okay. Ecology, 6.4. Now, just to cover off on the point raised by Anne Stephen, we need a full ecology survey of Mount Iron now. This is what we talked about it at the hearing yesterday with, I think John Wellington. When you do work, there's obviously got to be any review or assessment impact on the ecology of the reserve at that stage. I'm just not understanding why, if we do a full ecology survey now, and the ecology, things could change, I guess, over the time. So I'm nervous, we could talk about doing all these surveys and studies. It costs money, and what is the value at this point if we're going to be doing it every time we checking out the impact on the ecology of the reserve as we do things? So, any thoughts on that?
I think
this is more high. I'm not actually talking any specific ones here. I'm just talking around.
I know, Dave, you happy to control the rabbits on Mount Iron?
Well, what, sorry?
Happy to control the rabbits on Mount Iron?
Are we happy?
Well, no good, because it says here control pet for plant and animal.
We'll maintain that. We'll keep it to the RPS levels.
Okay.
Yes.
Somebody said we could just have a night shoot for the whole town. Just start on one side and work our way to the other.
I just raised. I'm just thinking, just covering off on what some of the things we heard. There was another thing, no reference to climate and biodiversity plan. You got any comment on that, Christine?
I believe that was referring to our hearings report.
Oh, okay.
where we were
Oh, okay.
And if it wasn't, it probably is still relevant in the very top section of this plan where we list other relevant documents such as the Wildlife Act. And
Yeah.
With another QLDC policies like our dog bylaw, we could add add that into.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because they reckon should be more spotlighting biodiversity in the plan, so that would cover off. But we recognise it, and it is a plan, something we work with. Okay, the policies, ecological. Any comment on any of those policies?
And just going back to my rabbits, I think 6.4.4 is when it says control pest, plant and animal species. Sounds like it's going to be our responsibility to control them, and I think that might be a bit onerous in terms of some, or even some plant species, but certainly rabbits. I mean, it's not like we're going to ever get them under control that I can control.
Well, it could. Well, there's two things. One is controlling it. The other is eradicating it. I don't think you're going to eradicate them, but it's just like the Oradpors. All they did was control it. Let's get the numbers down. They didn't get rid of it. So, yeah, we did get submissions on this, people wanting us to get rid of the pest plants and pests before we do too much more.
They talked about getting rid of them before we did any planting or anything.
Well, that's plant, yeah, the pest plants in. I don't know,
I guess the thing to think about is, does that require any changes in here? Because this already says that we'll control pest, plant and animal
no, it doesn't,
species
it just,
and things. It might be more of an operational thing about the order in which things actually happen, as
yeah,
long as the plan directs it.
yeah. No, I agree, I just mention it because we've got support to do something, but from the community want that, but it's just we're really totally around about the word control. Control doesn't mean that we're gonna do the best we can to control it. I don't know. What,
We'll undertake pest, plant and pest animal species control on Mount Iron. We already do.
okay,
So we'll, be continuing to do that as part of our responsibilities.
And we support the groups who do that. There's a
Yeah.
volunteer agreement for the trap line.
Just
So,
by nature, it's just an underlying responsibility we have, so we can find it any more than that.
so yeah, we go back to 6.2. We've got a policy enable community engagement and involvement in planting and caring for the ecological values. Communities value active participation in planning, maintaining, enhancing the reserve. I suppose we've got they all lead on to getting those groups involved in helping control the pests. That makes sense. Right, we had a lot on ecology, but we got the end. I think I've been through the fish and forest and bird thing. She put a lot of recommendations for changes to policies in there. But, anyway,
To be fair though, she did say that she was making it as a avid forest and bird
yeah.
promoter in that sense, and she was going to go to the extreme with that hat on, as it were.
Okay, we'll leave it at this stage. I'll have another read through that to see if there's anything that jumps out from what she's recommending that we should add in there. I haven't. Sorry, I ran out of breath last night going through it.
I think, yeah, if there's anything that bolsters the ecological policies in there.
Can you have a look at that?
Cons-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Because she's got a lot of good knowledge and expertise in that area, so she might have something in there that's worth adding.
And I think her point about an ecological report, we do have further down requiring in the infrastructure section about it must demonstrate that it enhances the ecology. So that implies that an ecological report would be necessary, but maybe there's a way of actually bolstering when an activity is going to happen, that there's an ecological assessment done.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
A proposal must include.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that. Okay, yeah, we've got to be a bit careful sometimes about what we specify for, because we've got submissions arguing against the overbearing cost of peer reviewing and stuff like that. So, okay, ecology. Move on. Happy? Yep. And yes, if you could have a look at what Scottish Pride, we'll see if there's anything bad there. 6.5. Development, infrastructure and amenity. The one is the general thing. We talk a lot about, I know there were submissions on this, or a submission about using, we're talking about car parks. Someone said, oh, not just car parks, vehicle parks, or for buses and things like that. I know car park is quite a common term, so do we just keep using car park? You happy with that? Or you want to? We do specify in 6.5.10 talking about bus specific parking. It's really a technical thing, but whether we need to change our terminology around car parks. It's accepted, happy with car parks? Sorry.
Everyone understands that.
Well, some of them said we shouldn't be we talk about car park, but not just for car park, it could be for buses.
Change it to just parking, but
it's a general term used. I'm sorry, I don't want to get bogged down, and I'm just saying that it was raised.
Yeah, we could say parking instead of car parking. Car parking's probably
Vehicle.
currently vehicle parking, yeah, that which could include bike parking.
That's right. So we're talking about all sorts of parking.
Just change it.
Sorry, it sounds like a little thing, but it was right. Okay, let's go through these. Have a look at, see what term best consistently through there. Policies. We didn't get a lot of, I haven't got a lot of markups on this.
No, not at all. I can think of.
We must have done a pretty good job. So we do need to talk about, there's a couple of areas we need to talk about these public service utilities. Now, there's a big, strong submission from Connexa and that about the word discourage. And I had a look at their thing, because they're actually, they're wanting us to highlight somewhere that some of the infrastructure that they would offer actually reduces the risk, because they, you know, monitoring stations and cell phone towers and things like that. So we've got in there, discourage new commercial and public infrastructure, such as cell towers, transformers and things. So is that, they say that's too strong and they don't like it at all. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you know, anything like that that goes in the Mount Island is going to be controversial at best.
We asked Dave a question.
What are you asking me, sorry?
On public services and utilities on the dock estate, is there a policy in terms of allowing or discouraging?
Probably guided a little bit by what's in the CMS, but generally speaking, in national parks, they look to discourage that unless it's, you know, critical and necessary, as like the wording you put in the RMP. So, in respect to this, I don't think that discourages. I think that's what the intent is, to make people look at other alternatives before they come to the reserve. I think that's what the intent is. And
Yeah.
to ensure they really explore those things before they come to the reserve. Yeah.
Often
Look at
people
all
default to a big green space, oh, that's easy, let's
Well,
do
particularly if
that.
it sticks up above river, if you want communication or something like that, then the top of Mount Island's going to be great in terms of coverage. And so we want to.
Well, don't be saying they're going to get it. It's just because what they say in the first additional or amended wording to sort two sections go to adequately recognise the benefits of utilities and infrastructure that demonstrate a functional and operational need. The first being the recognition of infrastructure and service within Section 5 objectives, meaning that policy we've talked about, and thirdly, recognition that infrastructure can provide early warning systems for fire hazard, noting Mount Island is identified as high fire risk. So that was the wording from the key part of their submission.
That's all it does acknowledge, you know, unless critical to public health and safety. You know, so it does pick up on the point that they're making about it being beneficial to health and safety, some infrastructure sometimes.
It is critical to public health and safety. Yeah, okay.
I'm also just thinking that most of the cell tower or weather station requests do come to the board, and most of the time there is a commercial lease involved with that as well. So that's
Yeah, I understand. But
the commercial side of things.
yeah, I don't know what the see if you know if this stays in like that, okay, and then we get a request from them for some infrastructure there. I'm not sure what process you just highlight, but does it get a resource consent? So what I can see them looking at saying, okay, they have this in there, then someone will submit against what they want to do based on what this discouragement here. So I can see what they're aiming at. They want to take away any impediment possibly to, you know, even though, so it's really the word discourage, whether there's an alternative word or whether we're still happy. And I hear the comment from.
I think it's appropriate because I mean we don't want to make it too easy for them to just go, oh, there's a big open space, we'll put it here, and then the next time, oh, there's more room for another one, and suddenly we've got, you know, we need them to come to us and say, at least ask permission, and we can go, okay,
utilities providers do have some quite wide abilities to place their infrastructure where they wish. So,
Did they have to get consent for the one opposite you?
no,
They just do it.
So,
they just didn't.
so, okay, let's just take that example. And if we've got if they, they find there's a good spot there for a cell phone tower, and it doesn't really, it's not needed for public health and safety. It's just there for public service. Based on this, they would unlikely to get approval. Just like, for example, we've got the one we're just signing up on around on Forest Heights here, on the reserve or the buffer zone between Sticky Forest and Commercial Bay. That's for public service rather than, so if they wanted to do something, say around the other side facing Elktown to provide better coverage for there, or on this side, 3 parks, based on that, it wouldn't get a look at, would they? I'm not saying they should, I'm being the devil's advocate a little bit here.
I guess what we need to come up with is some wording that enables critical evaluation and approval of such infrastructure rather than just the word discourage. So in other words, they have to go through a process to prove that there's no other option or no other better option.
Yeah, well, it says here safety, but all other options have been considered and found unsuitable, but that ties directly back to public health and safety. So what the public health and safety brings it right down to a very narrow provision. Now, I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm just saying if they had a good site which is reasonably out of the way, not affecting all the other activities, but provided a future service for communication coverage for a larger amount of our community. Is that?
Maybe we need to flip the sentence and say, enable new commercial blah, 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 as long as it is critical to public health and safety. So rather than saying we're discouraging, we enable it as long as it is.
Yeah, well, that's basically the same thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose
That
it is,
might
but
be a little, might sound quite accommodating.
Yes, right. We've got to be, yeah.
And, I guess the flip side, there might be some reserves out there where, having more of these commercial agreements with more towers might be more beneficial because, making, some money from it. I think discouraged isn't too strong to allow it if it's deemed necessary by the community, if there's no other locations found suitable, if it's not conflicting with all our recreation user types.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm really, the only thing I'm raising is tying it totally to public health and safety. Yeah. Critical to public health and safety. So, yeah. And then we did get submissions.
Yeah.
We get submissions saying they were against having too much infrastructure like this.
Barry said though, there's not much we can do to stop them with, in some cases.
Yeah, but well, this policy will.
Beneficial to public health and safety. So towers are beneficial and
Yeah, I mean that makes it.
Something like that. That's all I'm honing in on is just to take into account that there may be sometime even public support for something that is not critical to public health and safety.
Yeah, if you put them, get rid of critical and put beneficial.
Yeah. Happy with that?
Take it back.
And are you happy to leave in such as cell towers, transformers and underground infrastructure? I think in some earlier drafts there were questions about what it meant, so we put in those examples, but they don't need to stay in there if it makes it seem like cell towers seem singled out particularly.
Give some
Such as, give some examples.
One of the things they were talking about yesterday was monitoring for fire safety, that sort of thing. So
And I think it is good to keep underground infrastructure in there. It's quite a good reminder that those kind of requests come to us as well, and then that inhibits us from being able to plant trees in certain areas and that kind of thing. So yeah.
So does the commercial infrastructure, now that we've taken out commercial activities, this is commercial infrastructure different than commercial activity?
Maybe there's a way of just linking this single policy about it being beneficial to public health and safety or something into the commercial activities.
We haven't got in the commercial activity section yet.
I think we might have to keep commercial activities in, but say commercial activities are not permitted. So there would be still a
Okay,
section.
rightio, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
To clarify.
Yeah, okay, rather than just delete the whole section, yeah, okay, we're gonna keep that paragraph, right, that's a good point. Yeah, okay, we're gonna have to give that one, we'll give some more, we're gonna, yeah. Okay. So we're gonna remove the word critical, and we're gonna look at the wording. Can you just play around with that and come up with a recommendation on that? Okay. And also relating back to that commercial chapter, whether making sure on the legal side, whether we're talking commercial infrastructure, is that a commercial activity?
This is complete off the side of somewhere. Do we have power into any of our reserves anywhere for something that we can't even think about right now?
Yes, I think there's power into the reserves or connections that they can connect into.
I can't think of a reason why we'd want it right now, but EV charging station on Mount Island.
Yeah, we do have those
Okay.
kind of services that can be connected into.
Oh, it's just something that we haven't really talked about.
I don't have that listed in the infrastructure and services. We've got things like but a bit more could be added in that section about what we've got.
Just thinking when we were talking about the lakefront, because there's probably, well, there are commercial activities down on the lakefront, but fireworks and those sorts of things. And they don't, in some cases, quite useful to have somewhere to plug something into, in some reserves anyway.
Yeah, well, they can do that later. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Right. So yeah, well, so 6.5.12, we've got a bit of work. Have a look at that. Okay. The other one, 6.5.14, recommended we consider temporary, permanent and accessible public toilets. So someone understands it on the mobility thing, they're accessible in there. Whether that's just all toilets have got to be accessible. We've got to be careful because some of them, if they ever wanted a little composting toilet up near a climbing crag or something, that might not be accessible. So I'm just concerned about.
Because that was actually discussed when we went there.
It was, but this was a submitted regarding. We had a few submissions on mobility and accessibility.
I think it's fine to add accessible in. We've got consider at the beginning of and whenever possible, we do have our disability QLDC disability or guide. But yeah, we do try and, for example, if we're going to two toilets, we always try and make sure one is accessible. So I think that's fine, and it's good to consider for shelters as well. If you've got steps up to shelters, that's not.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you for that. Right, anything else? We got oh no, someone said 6.5.18 contrary to primary purpose. I don't understand what that was about. allow structures or signage only where they enhance the ecological, educational landscape. So we want signage though for risk mitigation. So how does that cover that? There's we had a lot of submissions on the fact we don't want a whole heap of signage. They, everyone agrees, but they talk about having warning signage for visitors going up the hill, knowing type of environment they're in. You remember we had that Mr. Bartholomew?
Yeah.
He talked to the people up on top of the hill.
Yeah, and some of that can be implemented straight away operationally, but yeah, for maybe 6.5.16 is where we're a bit more general about the facilities, interpretive information and wayfinding. It could include, and health and safety advice or something to acknowledge risks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to put it somewhere. But I'm just trying to understand with 6.5.18, does that conflict with 2.6.5.16? Allow structure only where they enhance the ecological education. Recreational experience, I suppose that covers. What do we need?
I think that's trying to limit the amount of signage and where it would be through that policy, whereas 16 is talking about what are the types of signage we'd like to, what kind of things we'd like it to cover.
Yeah, okay, so recreation experience, I suppose that the risk side of it can be covered under that.
Yeah. Risk.
Oh, yeah, we put something in 16 and then, yeah, okay. But we do need something, we do need to put something in to cover off on the submissions raised about risk.
Yeah. We can do that. I think there's probably also support for that within that overarching QLDC document around mitigating the activity controls to manage wildfire risk within reserves. There's probably more detailed stuff about the risk management in that document that we would adhere to.
Okay. There was a submission of I don't know whether it's operational or safety barriers on the east. And we know if there's anything in policies on safety barriers. I suppose that's covered under design of appropriate design of.
So is that safety barriers for fire risk?
No, I think it's to stop people falling over the edge.
Oh, okay, sorry, fall from high risk.
So that's track design and trail design, I guess, is it? Or?
In our risk section 6.8.6, mitigate hazard risks such as rockfall and fall from heights in a minimal and visually sensitive way to protect the landform and landscape.
Okay. Just
If we would go down the health and safety route, we'll just kick it off and say, sorry, you're not allowed up here. Then we do the absolute minimum that we need to do in terms of signage to deal with Mr. and Mrs. Stupid.
Okay.
The zone. Every single takeaway coffee cup has caution contents might be hot. How far do we go?
And that can be through design as well, not having big trails that lead to dangerous locations, that kind of thing. Just through the design of what we do, but people are responsible for their own, as we've got individuals are responsible for looking after their own welfare and use reserves at their own risk.
Sorry, just on back on access. We had a lot of because we've got to cover off on the access points, and we had obviously a lot of submissions on access point 9. 6.5.3 identify and encourage establishment of a main arrival area and secondary arrival areas and nodes. That's a policy, so yeah, okay. Then limit parking to main secondary.
Which policy are you looking at?
I'm looking at policy 654. 653, sorry. I'm just trying to understand, we got a, yeah, at the moment we've got the access points, let's go through them. The main one's obviously around by the car park, this side, then you got one off Old Racecourse Road, then you got one at Hidden Hills, I guess the key ones, and one opposite Pleasantville, I guess. We don't advertise anything else, the one at Access 9. I'm just wondering, in the policy side, we most probably don't need, I'm not sure whether we have to address that in the policy side of things, anywhere. Which access points, or does that become an operational thing? Because, okay, let's say access 9, being up there, it's not a good access point, definitely not for vehicles. We understand it's council-owned land. We've got as part of the purchase of that for the reserve.
I think that email that Simon sent through last night was actually quite helpful in that it almost suggested that we discourage anyone going anywhere near that access way.
Well, I tend to agree, because it's got no parking at the bottom. It's got walking maybe, but at the moment we're not encouraging it. We don't advertise it. The gate's locked. I just trying to understand whether what we do in this plan to address the access points. Do we?
I guess one of the things I'm just thinking about is that everyone that lives here knows so many different ways to get up the mountain, should we say? What do we want to do with the tourists coming to town, and where do we want to direct them? I mean, sense would say off the state highway, and focus on that as the welcome to Mount Iron, but the other ones are just something that the locals use, shall we say, rather than, I don't think, we're not going to want the average tourist to suddenly go around and park around the Allenby parking going that way, or even
Hill. But the idea is that we specify here the establishment of main arrival area and secondary arrival areas. So I would have thought the area we want to promote for visitors is the main arrival area, where there's car parking, there's toilets, already infrastructure.
I think there should be a focus on the state highway one, and the other one's just casually mentioned is locals only.
I think that'll go line.
Sorry?
I don't think we should include that as a advertised access.
Did you?
So I'm just trying to understand from the policy side of it, how does that flow down into, I guess it flows into the maps. There's a map in the policy?
There's a map at the end of the RMP, and it has the 9 access points listed and identified, which I guess for the purposes of reading the RMP helps us identify what areas we're talking about. But for the public and all our signage, we could just identify the main access areas and leave even, Racecourse Road off there. That's sort of more of a secondary access. It doesn't supply any.
That's where all the climbers go to, that one.
There or anything like that we'd want.
Yeah, because that come up as an issue too for the parking on Racecourse Road and the damage to the stormwater and all that sort of thing. So I'm just trying to understand how it will work, what we have to have in here or to enable or to facilitate what you just said. We've got there at the moment, identify and encourage establishment of main arrival area and secondary arrival areas and nodes.
The type of other place that would come up is if we were doing a trail network plan. So on that trail network plan is when we'd go into more detail about, where is the place that the bikers, for example, might want to arrive and make sure there's a decent dropping area for that, or that they can access that well.
So we don't, so all those concerns can be addressed when we do.
Through a trail.
So we don't need to, you're saying we don't need to put anything here to.
Potentially that could be removed.
Sorry?
That policy.
Or we just take out, leave in establishment of a main arrival area and forget about the secondary arrival area and nodes.
It reads
Well,
planning speak.
I just think that if someone talks about Mount Iron as a tourist, it should be obvious to them that the state highway entrance is the one that they go to.
You know, if
The
we
rest is-
promote a whole myriad of entrances, you're gonna create problems over time.
Yeah.
Connecting, so I think we can focus on the main.
Encourage establishment of a main arrival area.
Full stop, yep.
Okay, yep. So do we have to encourage that or just establish?
Establish and promote main arrival area, maybe? Just to get people to go there as their default, shall we say, rather than.
Because we've got to also, if you're doing that, we've got to look at also down at 5656, limit car parking to main and secondary arrival areas and treat stormwater runoff.
We could, secondary, I see how that makes things a bit confusing, because then you might have, there's primary, secondary, tertiary, even, you
Yeah.
can go lower. So we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just focus on main
Main,
versus
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So limit.
The only car parking is the state highway one that's actually on the reserve, isn't it?
Yeah.
And L&B.
Oh, is that on reserve?
Sorry, Allenby, there's a car park at Allenby.
That is
Yeah,
use,
yeah.
not the reserve land.
So we're heading toward trying to just focus on main arrival area, right?
Yeah.
Taking the emphasis off and then all the uncertainty around. secondary,
I guess what I'd like to think that the average person from Wanaka that is accessing the mountain from other areas is going to be.
Well, there'll still be other access points, but it's how much we develop them and promote them. Does that make sense? You're
Yeah,
concerned?
so sorry, just so to be really clear, so I think you're saying all the access points as they exist are fine, but in terms of advertising and promoting, you want that to be focused on a main arrival area.
Main arrival
which at
area.
the moment would be the car park of State Highway 84.
Yeah.
But obviously other people can use all the other
Yeah,
access.
yeah,
points,
the
you know,
locals will have their.
Oh, that's, some of them.
But based on
jumping
that,
their back fence.
Yeah, so we're taking away the thing of secondary, so we identify them. But or do we want to even identify, even though it is available as one, the access line?
No, I don't think we should be promoting, but it's fine.
But do we have to cover that in the plan, or can that be as part of it?
The map, changes to the map don't have to be covered in the
Maybe
plan.
with that one, we just put emergency exit only.
I think visually, you, for example, would still see the green portions of that long skin of the land that is reserved land, but it wouldn't have to be marked on this map as an access point. We could even change the heading to, main access or main places to access, and just have the three places like Allenby and the State Highway.
I think we do that. Then I don't know under operationally what you do with that gate up at the top there, whether that's another story. Yeah. Okay. Whew. Anything else on development, infrastructure, and amenity?
So,
We'll see how we go. We'll see how that comes back like. Landscape and geology. Once again, the question of cultural landscape was raised. 662. But we have already talked about how we're gonna check that out with Atahu.
Right, the significance of Mount Hon is Rock Mountain.
Rock mutton.
It's just Barry's interpretation of it, all right?
That's your friend.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got the reference to the right out. Right, now we get into recreation and enjoyment. So, yeah, sorry,
Just
you run out of
my
power?
battery's getting a little bit low. I'll just plug in for a minute instead of. I don't hear that. I'll still be
Yeah,
part of
right.
it.
The first part is, there was people raised a question about definition of tracks and trails. Do we have definitions? Are they different?
They're not different, they're used interchangeably throughout, so we can define that as well, or we could stick to using just one version, or say tracks and trails everywhere throughout, rather than just trail here sometimes and track there.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, because you could almost, if you're going to say that, say you just have tracks, plant trails, but if you want to use both words, if you say and, it looks like it's you got a track, and then you also, and you've got a trail, so I know it's a bit of a pedantic thing, but it was raised.
Now, you obviously tracks and trails guideline, I think even in there.
Yeah, well, I'm tired with that, I'm not, as long as we understand that they're talking the same.
That's a main definition kind of encompasses it all.
It is
Trail.
as trail, so we could. stick
Just
with
use that,
trail and
yeah.
trail.
Yeah. I would.
Are you guys all happy with that?
I mean, if it matches the district plan, then sure, why not?
Okay, sorry, I'll just remember here, exactly. The 671 was a submission to maintain and upgrade and extend. I think that came from Guy Stephen, I'm not sure, because we say we've got the current trails there, but we need the opportunity possibly to have more walking trails. So they wanted to add the word extend the current walking trail network for the continued use and enjoyment of the reserve by the community and business natural walking trail. Any comment on that?
I'd argue that 6.7.3 actually allows for a sustainable well-designed network.
Well, with 6.73, we've got to, because we've taken out 5.2, you know, reading that relates more to, you know, we're talking about walking trails up there. This one, I would say 6.73, we need to put in there that we've got to mention biking trails at some stage. Because it talks about meets the needs and range of trail users and skill levels, provides a legible track system. It's quite comprehensive, considers ongoing maintenance safety things. So, well-designed bike trail network.
I think the word network is causing some.
Yeah, the network word was good, because then they start talking about bike parks and bike networks. So, bike trails. Because we had a lot of submissions on this, so, you know, even though it was controversial, we had a lot of submissions against submission 4, so we definitely need, you know, we all agree that we have walking trails and we have bike trails. Some of them around the bottom, and even maybe we've got to talk about whether the uphill ones can be shared, but majority, the feeling was that they should be separate. Then we all agree on that, don't we? So we've got to make sure that that's reflected here.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about trails, we've got to, like you just said, biking, walking, and maybe commuter.
Yeah, because we had a submission on that from Trucks Trust, and that enhanced that commuter trail around the bottom. Yeah. So we've got to make sure we're all agreeing on that, aren't we? Okay.
Can I just clarify as well, you brought up about extending the walking trail network?
Yeah.
So you guys are agreed definitely that should be allowable, I think?
Well, once again, we've got to be, I think we should take the word network out. If we're taking it out of bikes, we should take it out of there too, because we're talking walking trails. We don't want, so I don't know, is there an option to, you know, there's walking trails there now. Is there an option to have more walking trails? Like John Williams said, but the reserve's twice as big now, so.
I think that came through as a standout policy by itself about the existing walking trail, because there was so much support and wish to keep it as is from the early community engagement.
Okay.
So I think sort of maintaining that trail route is quite good to keep as a standalone policy, but then within the 6.7.3, you could allow for a sustainable, well-designed walking, biking and commuter trails within the reserve that meet the needs, etc.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Well designed. So you they're including biking, walking, and commuting trails. And we take out the word network on both of them, just talk about trails or tracks within the reserve that meets the needs and range of the trail users, as all trail users, and skill levels. Well, that could be for, well, that's a walkers and provides a legible track system and considers ongoing maintenance and safety requirements, including separated walking and biking trails, unless shared use is deemed appropriate and safe in some areas. Well, that's pretty well covered then.
One of the best clauses in there.
It's a very important one, maybe put that as number one. Okay,
That could be an objective at the.
so that definitely covers off on what we're agreeing that we're allowing bikes, so that clause replaces the any concern about removing 5.12. We've got it all specified in there. Yeah, okay. So then once again, the next one, 674, we maintain tracks. So there's this interchanging of the word trails and tracks. We've got to be a bit consistent throughout, I think. Oh, yeah. Yeah. What else is there in this section?
We need to create arrival area nodes for activity in specific areas.
It might not need to be pulled out as a separate policy the way it is here, but it's something that we should consider.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's covered under 6.7.3 in terms of it. You know, we're talking about making whatever we do appropriate, shall we say? I don't think we need to drill down that far in terms of just here's the start sort of thing. I just think that could go.
What's that, sorry?
6.7.8, create arrival area nodes for activity specific areas. I think that's getting a bit.
I think that's about, for example, where we don't want to have conflicts between walkers and bikers, having a sort of a specific place where bikers would go and enter the trails or trail network and sort of arrive and depart from the same place would help, you know, the activity in one area.
Like the people this way, cotton people that way.
So it's probably really mainly talking about biking there, and I think it does, I think 6 minutes definitely covers that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to make sure that it's obvious if there's a shared up path for everybody, that when they do get to the top, that it's very obvious that the cyclists go that way and the walkers go somewhere else, so that they're that point, you know, when they get to that point, that it's very obvious to each of them which way to go, rather than the cyclist suddenly turning around and going, oh, I'm going to go back where I came up.
Well, so, but you're going a bit further than just arrival areas then. No, you're talking about nodes for activities.
Well, I'm not even, it's not so much that, it's just more like a signage rather than a
So you want to change it, or are we happy with it? Leave it based on
I just don't think we need it. I think it's covered under the sustainable well design part.
Right. Take it out. Do we other recreation? So we want to include in here something about the
Paraglide?
sorry. They already covered, they already mentioned.
There's always going to be something new.
You talk about listing all of the recreation like the tranquil meditation type side of things, and that we have to put that in here. Or, so what have we got? We've got consider new recreation opportunities where they do not conflict with existing users.
I think that enable active and passive open space recreation, I think that actually what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, see, because what we've got down here, we've got policies on each of the, we've got climbing, paragliding. And all that, but now we haven't got anything. Yeah, this is this whole thing about, we took 5.2 out about biking, and now we've got the opposite, we've got all these other specified and nothing about biking.
Well, we have it in the tracks and trails, but.
Hey?
We mentioned biking and.
Oh, we've got it covered in 673. It's just a matter of,
Are you calling that recreation type out specifically, which might not be part of an organised club or group or that kind of thing? So you're saying, for example, potentially to add a policy, support the use of the reserve for
Downhill biking.
I think this is coming into the Amanda's use of.
yeah, well, that's another example, but it's all these of how much do we have to have in policies for each of the activities? Because if they're covered under 673,
673 is specific to biking.
and trails, yep, okay. So climbing is separate. That's what,
Yeah, it's got climbing, paragliding, and what was the other?
I think because they're quite established uses of the reserve, it is good to
Mention.
call them out specifically.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I actually don't have a problem with any of those.
Okay, that's right. The 6716, I just wonder, okay, I'm just wondering whether. Yeah, just once again, the ordering of these, if we want to. Yeah, just wondering whether we've got 673, which is all about biking, walking, whether we want to put the other. And then some of the more general type policies further down. Can we just have a look at the order of those to see whether the logical, for people starting to see now, oh, it's talking about walking, but oh, hang on, we've got all the other users way down the bottom here somewhere.
I guess it was trails and then other.
Oh, that's two, sorry, yeah, different heading, yeah, okay, I'm with you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, look at two, okay. Okay, 6716, there was a submission about the support the use and extension of climbing crags. And they want to add existing and future climbing crags. Is that an issue?
Doesn't that already support the use and extension? And doesn't that cover new?
Well, I'm not sure it does, but I don't know. I'm just repeating what the submission said.
And did it say, I think it said existing climbing crags, whereas they want more?
Oh, it's what their submission. I'll have to find it, I don't know.
Extension of the climbing crags within appropriate areas. So I think that does currently support use and extension of climbing crags. I think they want us to say and new climbing crags, maybe, or
Yeah, existing and future, in other words.
yeah.
I just wrote down what they wrote.
I don't have a problem with adding in a with new or more.
Well, they, okay, we can put something in there. I don't think that's some. You got anything else?
That mitigating the risk for other users that when we with the climbing guys and stood underneath a couple of their more accessible climbs, you can just imagine if there's a crag easily accessible to a new path going past, the chance of someone knocking a small pebble off the top and that hitting a walker on the head is, well, it hasn't happened, but there's potential for it if there's too much.
They are,
proximity.
yeah, they are very safety conscious.
Yeah.
They climb near.
Well, that's why they were the one emphasising they want to be involved in any development or any additional tracks and trails so that they can have their say. I think we've covered that somewhere there. The other one, 6722, support an efficient planning framework by updating the district plan zone to open space and recreation with subzone and formal recreation or nature conservation. Can you explain that? What the hell, why have we got that? Is that a needed policy? Someone opposed it, I don't know who it was, but I'm just trying to understand what it's trying to achieve. 6722? Might be your area, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, so
Is it needed in there, is it, to help with the future zoning of it?
pretty much most of council reserves are zoned informal recreational and the open space chapter of the district plan, which sort of outlines under the RMA what can and can't happen as permitted activities or what needs consent or not. So this would just be bringing Mount Lion into that RMA framework as well.
But do we have to do a process to update the plan, the district plan, to include these?
Yeah, so it would need to,
Yeah,
if you're essentially rezoning the land, it would need to go through the plan.
So is anyone dealing with it or doing that? We'll have to talk to Alison, right? District plan review.
Yeah, so it would be the policy team would take that on.
So we have this policy in there to ensure that happens, is that what you're saying?
I'm unsure where it came from, but I assume that's correct.
Yeah, so this has been through an internal review from all other departments, including P&I and legal and.
So they asked for that.
And that was one that they.
Okay,
included.
right out.
Processes. Things about day-to-day management of the reserve.
Well, it's a one-off thing, really. Once it's done, but it's like, it's just reminding us to do it, but it's.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know. There's someone, I don't know who, someone suggests we should take it out, but they said it's an external process, but.
Is it likely that there would be people against doing that?
Yes, I mean, to do a plan change like that, it'll be, go out to notification and things, so it's in terms of.
I suppose it could, so this would support it, yeah, from our point, yeah, okay, yeah, so we can turn up to a plan change process, someone submits against it, and we've got nothing in our plan to say that we would like it. Yeah, okay, cool, that's why they wanted it in there, they're thinking ahead. Good on them, well done, actually. Natural hazards, 6-8. Have we got this area strong enough? There's a few submissions on this. I don't know. Actively implement and regularly review the QLDC activity controls to manage wildfire risk within reserves. Yeah, someone wanted for allow for reserve closure things is quite a hot topic, obviously. Someone wanted that only as a last resort in extreme situations, but that's just
Pretty much how it's handled anyway.
Brenton, just talk about this one.
so. Are we happy we've got the signage of risks covered in other areas, or should there be something in here, a policy on risk signage?
6.8.3 about communicating them. It doesn't say signage.
Identify risks when QLDC becomes aware of them and mitigate them in a non-invasive way and communicate them to reserve users. Well, that covers it, I guess. Signage was one way of communicating. And the other way is through, yeah, because if you do the signage, then we might want to also put things on the radio or Facebook or something like that too. Yeah. Yeah, all that sort of thing. Yeah. So that keeps it, that covers it pretty well. So I don't think we need to play around with it. We get involved in when you should close the reserve. We've got that pretty well covered in there.
Yeah, there's a separate wildfire closure, right?
That's
That
right.
applies to more than just Mount Island, so it's
Yeah.
consistency.
There is.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions on it?
I mean, you can't legislate against some stupid
Oh, well, that's, someone mentioned that over out there, no, I don't know, it's Tom, what's his name? No dumbed down experience. Came for the need, prevent illegal upward track, yeah, he mentioned that a couple of times. Right, so that's all through the draft plan. Do we have anything else we want? Have we covered off all the key issues or not?
The biggest issue from our commissioners and other people, apart from access 9.
Biking is clearly, you know, something that came through quite strongly, in terms of,
Against.
for and against, and then also concern about how it would be managed as if it did go ahead. So
I mean, the potential is huge in terms of both walking and biking in terms of the development of the area. I think it's in some ways quite exciting what could happen. But just it's going to need a Wanaka-based trail person to just
I think
hang from a helicopter and go, down there looks good.
from the submissions, it did seem, you know, the understanding of what biking would mean was quite different. A couple of trails, or does this mean a bike park or something commercial?
Actually, yeah, maybe we need to look at that trail versus park thing with regards to bikes, because there was concern that we were going to end up with that Lismore Park kind of thing up on Mount Iron. And I think maybe we need to make sure that that's not what happens.
What's that, sir?
Oh, the difference between the bike trails. So in other words, it's you're going downhill versus the bike park that you've got in Lismore Park. And there was some.
Well, we've taken out the word network to try and
Yeah.
allude it there to.
And we don't talk about biking specifically in any one kind. There was, I think, was it the guy Tom who talked about all the different styles of biking,
right,
and
yeah.
we've kept it quite generic to biking as, you know, some kind of grow and wane in popularity, and the only place we've referred to biking differently is when we're talking about commuter.
Well, I guess the thing about the biking is that it's one of the things that's going to happen there that it's going to involve some level of work, shall we say, in terms of, you know, spade and shovels, or most of the other things that just are less involved in terms of setting up or the infrastructure that's needed.
Yeah.
Paragliding is simple, they just jump. The climbers drill a hole, but the bikers are going to need a lot more work and input in that sense. And then we need to make sure that we've got good control over whatever it is that.
Well, that's what goes back to this. I'm just trying to go back to the policy 672 and 673. 673 is such an important policy there. You know, this allow for sustainable, well-designed bike trails. So the well-designed covers off a lot of things here. I was wondering, because we've got different types of, we should be add the word sustainable, appropriate, and well-designed. Should the appropriate be added in there just to sort of focus more on what's appropriate in those areas? Anything.
Appropriate. If there was any way of defining that.
Defining appropriate. Okay.
I think limiting it to a certain area and making it clear that it's limited to an area and not opportunity to expand and expand and expand. And
How are we
expand.
limiting it to the area?
Yeah, and then appropriate, that will be covered off by things like ecological reports and.
Do we need to put something in there that says the area it will be defined at a later date by whoever the experts happen to be that are going to go up?
Well, that'll come under the one well-designed. See, there's well-designed things. That so when we talk about we talked about this. Sorry to go back again, but the ecological type requirements and that meets the breeds range of the school to provide consider strong and most safety requirement to separate all controls. Use deemed appropriate and safe in areas. So the ecology report type thing, should that be? Do we need to add that anyway? Or does that come under well designed?
We do have it in infrastructure, so it's probably worthwhile adding it to.
I'm just thinking whether we need, a sustainable well design trail network within certain areas of the reserve or something like that, so that it,
I guess
it's
the only thing about that is that this now is talking about biking and walking. The 6.7.3,
Yeah.
so
no, just wondering whether we can just put within certain areas of the reserve that will be identified in appendix, whatever, and
Well,
might change.
Yeah, I think if we get too specific there, these are the range of trail users and skill levels. So it meets the needs and range of trail users and skill levels, I think. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Chris, but I don't know, we get too specific in here,
Well, I'm just trying to think if we can specify this is where the only area where cyclists are going to go. But we allow
well, we can't
ourselves.
do that now, because.
No, because we don't know, but I'm just wondering if we can put something in this that says in a specific area, and then we have some kind of appendix that can be altered more easily than the actual management plan itself. So, and we put in there
Well,
that it's identified, but will grow or change or whatever, depending on.
yeah, but if we leave it, it meets the range, these are the range of trail users, so instead it's gonna have to go through a whole lot of steps, the consultation with all the other activity users, and
No, I'm just wondering.
be safe, in some areas.
Are we better to define the area for cyclists and say it's only there, wherever that happens to be?
We could add something like, even underneath it, a few bullet points that, that considers other user groups, ecology and safety or something like that. Don't want to limit it to those things though.
But you can leave it open by saying, which will include, but not limited to, something like that. So then and then we want to put in something like, and start specifying areas, but,
Well, when you look at the paragliding guys, that's where you do it. In the story, the climbers they have, this certain areas where they do that.
well, they want to do, they want to go to other areas too.
yeah.
See, so I think can we leave it and come back with some ideas on what we're suggesting there?
And it's getting quite long, maybe it gets broken into two policies somehow, so
Yep.
yeah, we could just look,
And
it might
structure-
even be an A option or a B option or something.
Yeah, because it's such an important policy, that one. It's such an becomes such a big part of what we've received submissions on.
I can just imagine though that some biking enthusiasts are going to go, that'd be really cool to have a trail going down this bit here, and we're going to go, oh, no, we can't possibly even think about putting it there because of whatever the reason is. And I just think it'd be useful to say early on, this is for walkers and that's for bikers and that's for paragliders or whatever, so that it's at no point is someone going to come along and say, I want a downhill trail coming straight down that face there, and it goes across the zigzags of the existing walking trail or something like that. We can just say, no, this is where the bike's going.
I think that's probably a much longer process to not know where that appropriate application.
No, yeah,
is or
I
what it
agree, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to direct us in that direction. in terms of-
Ecological values, katahu values, all those sort of things again.
Well, if you make a list of, try it, we'll just see what you can come up with. We'll have a look at that, all right? Agree with. The question was, I didn't forgot to raise was the 672, whether we need to have a peer review if it's well designed, required suitably qualified peer review of proposed trail development. Do we need to keep that in there? Is that impossible? Is that creating a step which could be costly and unnecessary if they're well designed already by design people?
I know it was John Wellington who said that, somebody for the trails.
Some of these things evolve, you can't just have it built, so that's it, you know, there could be some modifications required, so when you start setting things in concrete, and getting really fixed, once it's peer reviewed possibly, and then unable to be altered. So I think we're going to have a flexible approach to it.
Yeah, I think it probably is quite a good quality step in design, having somebody peer review it, but I don't think it needs to be a policy. So yeah.
It doesn't say that we've got to follow the.
Well, when you're doing well designed, and whoever's doing it, you know, it's an operational thing, and you're a trail here may need to be for walking, may not need peer review, but hey, once you get into another trail which is more technical, maybe that could need to be peer reviewed. But blanketly saying we want all trail development or buildings peer reviewed, I think it's adding a level too restrictive. So I'd take it out. Leave it up to rely on the well-designed trail and the renew rules.
Got a comment there?
I guess what I was thinking about that earlier conversation about safe reserve.
Yeah.
So this kind of aligns to that and ensure, because a number of our reserves we do have expertise that come in and help us design trails. I'm thinking of Ben Loma. Okay. So you're right, we can use some discretion on depending on what type of trail, you know, whether you're going to need to get it peer reviewed and how much. But it's useful to have it in there, so that means that any trail development considers that.
This one says require suitably qualified.
Pretty strong. It doesn't give any discretion. We can keep it in there and put some discretion there.
Consider suitably qualified peer review of proposed trail development.
Maybe we just put when required or as needed.
You could put
Have you got a clause from anywhere else?
when required, peer review to be undertaken.
Safety or whatever.
So
Maybe we do that. So we could put peer review of
If
proposed
required.
trail development.
If deemed necessary.
For safety or whatever reasons.
But then they'll say it's open, you decide, but then at least, because I suppose it covers off a little bit on the safety side of things, we can show that it opens the door, and it can't have people come back and say, oh, you know, we don't have to have a peer review, you say, yes, you do, because we've deemed it.
Maybe we just ensure peer review of all proposed trail development or something.
so depending on the nature of the proposal, you know, you need something in there to say what we will require, you know, we will need to go and look at it, use some expertise.
But you wouldn't necessarily want it on every single trail.
Not on this every trail, because
So far, I've modified it to consider suitably qualified peer review of proposed trail development if appropriate.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Well done. Yeah, happy with that.
Right.
So it puts or takes away some of the potential liability of a poorly designed trail coming back to whoever and saying, it's your fault, Dave.
Yeah, understood. Have we got anything else? You got anything else, Chris?
No,
Barry?
my concerns are all sorted.
No, I think, you know, it'd be good to see the draft and another review at some point.
There's more changes than this in the 10-year plan.
Have you got anything we think we've missed? Okay, well, no rush.
Some of the things that came up were commented about improving the maps with the climbing crags, just the way we've identified them.
Oh, yeah, they said they were, yeah.
It didn't quite show how many there were or something, but we could show it in a different way or work with them to come up with something that.
I don't think we need to put well, they did have in there, they wanted to add into 673. Ensure walking tracks are separated from climbing crag base areas, but I think
Okay, I think.
I think we've gone with the consultation.
I think that's the other way around, isn't it? Not sure walking track, so it's away from the common tracks. I think it's ensuring any new development doesn't.
Yeah, well, we're making sure we're trying to get something in there that any activity or any work that we can solve all users so that they all understand what's going on. I think we tried to put that in somewhere early on.
I do have a note about, consider elevating serenity and tranquility objectives, because it was mentioned quite a few times or somewhere. I think I do have a note up there about adding that in. What we discussed this morning.
We did talk, I don't know where we were putting it.
I've got a note from yesterday about the name of Mount Iron Height.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, I had that noted down too.
It's not mentioned anywhere in the RMP except for the map area, and if we're going to limit the map to pointing out the main access points, that name would drop out of the map. And
Okay, that's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, their address is, 702 Auckland Road. And it's just a private right of way, so it doesn't actually have a name or need one.
The note I made was improved Albert Town access. Is Old Racecourse Road the closest
it is currently.
entrance?
Yeah, and in the early engagement it came through as well that people would love to be able to connect more around the base of Mount Iron in those areas, and I think we don't own any land around there at the point at which if people subdivide it or something, there might be an opportunity to negotiate an easement, but that's not something I think in our plan as we've got it about promoting access to the reserve or encouraging access to the reserve, we're encouraging going through that process if it became available.
And that would be an opportunity to extend that active travel pathway around the base as well. So it's something keeping in mind.
Is it provide connections to active transport and public to identify, we played around with that 653, encourage establishment of main arrival area. You say there's another one there about.
I think it might be the objectives.
Oh, okay.
To retain the readily accessible connections.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it could be to retain and enhance the readily accessible, or something, just to allow for future ones.
Retain and develop, maybe.
They don't use the word develop.
There's a
Yeah, that might be a good idea to put that in there, okay?
It'd be really cool to be able to go all the way around. God knows how.
The philanthropic landowner.
So we're
that junction.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there was a submission on that one. You can make a car park there, bus park. Haven't been in the junction road yet.
Well, it's not named. There's
You
not a
can't
name on
Google search it yet.
No, it's there, but it's not got a name on it.
What else? Anything else?
No, I had Forest and Bird suggested a bit more description in the front end of the RMP about sort of a bit more on the geology and meltwater channels and some good information there. I think sort of RMPs have evolved over, since the introduction of the internet. There's a lot of information you can find separate to the RMP rather than it having to be held all within the RMP. So, and we do want to keep them sort of light and approachable, but happy to add a bit more information into that.
Well, see what you think on that. I'm nervous about putting too much, and that's why I said, well, if you're going to, I don't know if you have annexes or appendixes, but if you have a reference to go to this if they want to get more information, go to another document or to an appendix.
Yeah, or on that second page where I've got other relevant
Yeah,
documents.
yeah.
And I mentioned the.
Even put
fence,
links to
long
something.
planted Plant list, so if there's another document that could be referenced there as well.
Yeah, okay, we'll have a look at that, but I'm not a great fan of too much in the prime document.
I wondered if any bolstering of active travel was required or commuter, but I think what we've done to 6.7.3, adding in walking, biking, commuting, do that. We've already discussed pest control, but I had a note there if there was any way to bolster it, but I think we do have what we can put in the plan. I noted the use of the word nature when people were speaking, so it'd be good to keep that word in the vision. I didn't receive what Doug from Southern Hang Gliding Club brought in yesterday. Was that more from
there was the map.
handout?
There's a map.
Is there on that? Okay. So that might mean some improvements to our map that we've got.
Yeah, I haven't got a copy of it. I'll get the copy.
I have.
Yeah, he had a big one. Yeah, it was. I think that's the map they use for all their users, so they just know what they can and can't do.
Okay. Improvements to the map.
I've got a photo. You can take this one.
I'd be happy to run through from top to bottom where we're making changes and where we're, the notes I've made just to check if anything's missing. So other related documents add in QLDC biodiversity.
Oh, yeah, you have it right there. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, just to run through, check it. Yeah. QLDC biodiversity and climate action plan, add into the top page, and anything that we need to refer to with forest and bird. And then into the introduction, changing DOC owned land to DOC managed or DOC administered.
Administered is the word that's been used.
Updating the description of the primary or the title of the primary purpose to say this is modified from the Act based on community input.
Yeah.
A cultural landscape definition. I'm cruising through. So page 4, infrastructure and services. Add in about electrical services, water and wastewater. Also add in underneath the recreation section here about that biking was stopped for a few years, and make sure that the reserve, we're saying that it is currently used for climbing, not was, those kind of updates there in that section, and also consider adding more about geology in this introduction. And then right down to division. Next, page 6. Consider or add in recreation, scenic, cultural, ecological values, add in recreation, scenic. I have put to use the word outdoor recreation, but keep the word natural, and also to refer to the forest and bird submission to see if there's slightly better wording for vision.
Yep.
In the objectives, I've put to consider overarching policies first down to more specific ones in the order. 5.2, I've added about geomorphology, not just geology. 5.4, I've put to modify, no, that's for community non-profit one. Sorry, I thought that was for commercial. Don't worry about that. Remove the word undeveloped from 5.6. 5.7, refer to existing and future connections. 5.10, enable or facilitate instead of provide a safe and resilient reserve. Remove mountain bike trail network as an objective. Policies. So modifying commercial activities to state that we do not permit commercial activities, and adding a policy around potentially, in the event of beneficial public health and safety services, allowing for commercial leases for those. And then do I keep the consider paid parking for commercial activities or remove that? Yeah, I think that would be removed.
That'd be removed.
Yeah. And then on to community partnering and guardian, page 9. Add a policy requiring engagement with stakeholders, either to that section or the infrastructure section. So just to look at what would be best there. Community events, nothing. I did have a note here, 6.3.6. Do we want to add a consider overflow paid parking in the reserve? Just as Chris mentioned about.
I think there was
paying
originally
for
that
parking, but
put in just for the park and ride side of it. Was it not?
I don't, yeah.
that's something that could be considered as part of the parking approval process, whether it's paid or not. It doesn't need to be in the reserve management plan, but ecology 6.4. Add bolster requirements for ecology assessments with development. Again, check if that goes in the development section, but add a policy around that. 6.5, development and infrastructure. 6.5.3, change it to establish a main arrival area, or identify, sorry, and establish, and remove the word encourage. Getting through it. 6.5.6, limit car parking to main arrival areas. 6.
That's why we're talking about car parking, the racecourse road one. I can see at some point that's going to become an issue in terms of the number of cars that are going to end up there. But I don't know that it needs to be mentioned in the management plan, but that's an area that's at some point some roading guys or somebody are going to need to go down there and.
Well, see, that comes in a road control thing. You know, we can't stop people parking on the side of public roads, but
No.
I know for different reasons. But if it becomes an issue, then we just have to address it through the parking management plan.
And operational type things I have forwarded around to people who deal with them operationally. So
It's just a really poorly designed road for car parks.
Well, that's right. That's
In
one
terms
of
of this,
that's
rounded, that's
It's
got
an alternative type of subdivision with drainage.
So that area is out of scope because it's not on the reserve.
Yeah,
land. It's
yeah.
something that
So
we
maybe
would
we
like
need to put a
address
car park on the reserve.
And remove the word car from parking
yes.
in all instances. And yeah.
6512, we're going to put in change critical to
To
beneficial.
beneficial. And yep, that. Add accessible.
Accessible
6.5.16 include signage around risks and safety hazards and fire. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. And then some, oh no, sorry, landscape and geology. I thought we were in the hazard section. I've got just another reminder here to define cultural landscape. Trails, recreation and enjoyment. So remove the word tracks from the whole document and just refer to trails. Remove network from these policies. Change require peer review to consider if appropriate. 6.7.2 include walking, biking and commuter trail. Consider using the word appropriate and add some extra example criteria such as ecological report, safety, consulting other stakeholders, kaitahi values, and really have a good check of that policy again, because we already had a lot of positive feedback about it, but yeah, it needs to serve us really well. Moving tracks, 6.7.8, remove create arrival notes for activity specific areas. Down into the climbing crags, add existing and future. Just I've put a note here to check in terms of conflict with walking tracks if we've got that adequately covered, and I think by adding require consultation with other stakeholder groups, we probably do. Report the use and improvement of the existing paraglider launch. Is it meant to be extension as well of that, or just where they currently are, use and improvement?
Well, that was what was raised by them. They wanted to add any future ones to
Improvement.
put the use of an extension of.
Or the use, improvement and extension.
Well, they wanted existing and future, but
Was that for paragliding as well as?
no, that's just for climbing creeks.
Oh, yeah, climbing, we've got that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was down to
What were the other?
paragliding.
Oh, paragliding.
Yeah.
I don't remember them saying
No,
that
extension.
future ones. They've always been quite restricted just because of the fact that they're, in an airspace that's not controlled sort of thing.
So use and improvement is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And then nothing in hazards and risks. And then a few updates to the map. Most notably access and funding.
Okay, that was very good.
That was awesome.
So,
I'm glad we've got somebody that, like yourself, that gets to sit down and actually put this into place. Oh, should we hit unrecord?
no, we haven't finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
So, we're still on a hearing and panel, so we're going to move a resolution to close this off. And so the resolution is note the contents of this report, receive all submissions on the draft Mount Iron Reserve Management Plan and hear any submitters who wish to speak to their submission, which we've done, and recommend to the Wairakura including Community Board a final form of the Mount Iron Reserve Management Plan with changes as an outcome of the consultation process, subject to subject to agreement on the final form of the reserve management plan by the hearing panel.
Look, I have been listening for the duration, but I actually, in the last few minutes, just had to slip away to accept some photocopying. So can we just rewind a little bit so that I can catch up? I really feel like I've been caught with my hand in the cookie jar, but yeah, I honestly have been here the whole time.
How far back do you want to rewind?
A minute.
Well,
Just the,
we've just been through, Christine's
Yeah, yeah.
summarised all the points we've agreed on,
Yeah,
and now
I've
we're
been
getting to
I've been through.
resolution.
Yep, I've been with that, but can you just restate what your resolution is, please? That's all. That's all I need.
Okay, from the report, we are going with the recommendation of the resolution. 1, note the contents of this report.
Yep,
2, receive all submissions on the draft Mount Iron Reserve Management Plan and hear any submitters who wish to speak to their submissions.
yep,
We've done. 3, recommend to the Wanaka Upper Clutha Community Board a final form of the Mount Iron Reserve Management Plan with changes as an outcome of the consultation process, subject to agreement on the final form of the Reserve Management Plan by the hearing panel.
subject to agreement on the
Final form.
final form of the reserve management plan by the hearing panel.
All right. From a governance point of view, and is that an appropriate resolution? The last number 3. You happy with you need your advice on that, Jane?
Well, yeah, I mean, isn't that what I recommended? Because it is a bit of a work in progress, isn't it? Because you will want to have a look at what it looks like and how it reads once Christine has gone through and made those changes that she set out.
Okay, we've got the resolution on the table. Moved it. Someone seconded. Okay, Barry. So now we've got that moved and seconded, Jane. The only question I have is, just to say the administer a thing on how we do that final approval, whether we have to reform.
No, I really think it's sort of an administrative step, because yeah, and so you're not adjourning, you are concluding the hearing.
So it's moved and seconded. All in favour? Aye. Carried. I declare the hearing or meeting closed.